Don't know if it's snowing where you are, but it's snowing here. Hope you're good. And in this video, I'm gonna give you a brief insight into why I started mindfulness, and then the books that for me were like stepping stones that really brought me on to that next chapter in my learning of mindfulness and my practice of it. Now, why did I start? Day to day, I'd wake up and I'd have plans the day before, but the next day I'd feel like a different person. And in that way, I lacked the motivation to actually see things through. I had a few people around me as well that had quite positive, life-changing experiences, and I wanted some of that. So, my first book, Mindfulness in a Frantic World, it's an 8-week program. The meditations start in a really simple way. They start with body scans and short breathing exercises. But even that, like even waking up the body in that way, can unlock some tremendous feelings. And that spurred me on to continue and go through the 8-week program that was set out in the book. I was really into it, and it's one of the only things I've done in my life that I actually saw through. And for me, not only did I feel different and feel motivated and feel better than I had done for a hell of a long time and feel clear and present, but I'd also achieved this thing. But then the 8 weeks finish and you don't have any more book to read. And I worried a little bit as well that once that 8 weeks had ended, maybe the motivation would lower a little bit, and if these meditations stopped being as helpful as they were, maybe I'd trail off and stop. So I found this other book that was by Penman, who co-wrote that first book I read with Mark Williams, and I got quite excited by it because it was called Mindfulness for Creativity, and at that time I just started a job which I needed to be quite creative for. So I saw this and I thought, perfect, that's got to be the next one. And for me, this definitely was the second stepping stone in my journey. Just hearing a different voice with it that Danny was offering. Before, when I started mindfulness, obviously I had that motivation. And now with the creativity as well, I had the motivation to be creative, and the creativity wasn't watered down anymore. It was there. A lot of them were adapted versions of the meditations that I learned in that first book, but there were one or two that were like brand new meditations that I could try. And this is where I learned the insight meditation, a meditation that I use today, and I'll tell you about probably at the end of this video. For me, learning that meditation was the dawning in me being able to practice mindfulness myself and not feel as though I was reliant on the books. Okay, so I finished that book, and what was I going to do next? Work was really full on and really stressful, and I was still practicing meditation. But outside of the practice of meditation, I didn't really feel like I was properly incorporating mindfulness into my day-to-day life, because I practiced meditation and I feel superb. But then quickly, because I was in such a stressful job, my levels of mindfulness, it would feel like they drain out quite quickly. If you can meditate and be mindful in the everyday, well, that's the dream, isn't it? That's when you can really start to get anything you want out of it. So, next book, The Miracle of Mindfulness by Thich Nhat Hanh. I'd say this book helped me reach that next stage, that next stepping stone in opening up my knowledge of how vast the subject is. It made me feel like I was in magical company. It's written in a way that is very slow paced and is very mindful. They say the book took ages to write, because I think the person that he told or got to write it had to write mindfully. So they had to write every single word while being mindful. So the book, I don't know how long it took, but I'm sure it took a hell of a long time. And that comes through when reading it. It has a strange language to it, a very strange pace, which really, as you get through it, starts to sink into your bones. I wanted to soak it in. So I got to this point. I've read these 3 books and others, but I'm keeping it streamlined. So I'd read these 3 that had acted as the chapters to get me to this stage, and I was feeling like Buddha himself. I felt so well grounded and felt like I knew so much, and I suppose that's when I wanted to start giving something back. But still, I wanted something a little bit more hard-hitting, something that wasn't talking about how you do mindfulness or how you start mindfulness, but something that was really getting into why it was so good. Why Buddhism is True by Robert Wright. This was my 4th stepping stone in deepening my learning of Buddhism and mindfulness. Learning about the 5 aggregates, learning about the not self, learning about essence, learning about emptiness, learning about numerous different Buddhists and meditators and mindfulness practitioners who have devoted their life to this subject, and hearing their stories about what they've achieved by it. It hit me at exactly the right time, and it put that next step up in terms of my learning of the subject and of Buddhism as well. Learning about Buddhism in such a scientific way gave me the opportunity to see how superb this religion is. I got to this 4th stepping stone, this 4th chapter, and I was feeling pretty grounded. What could come along to change that? Came along in the form of The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And it's an excellent book. He talks about simple problems and makes you realise how they're not simple problems. There's a lot of depth behind all of the simple problems. But all of that depth can be healed and changed by simple actions. It's life-changing. And I don't know how I can say that, considering coming up to this path, my life had already changed. But it changed again, for the better. And incorporating everything I'd already learned into this book, it doesn't say that anything is wrong, it justifies it all and puts it up a couple of gears. He's definitely one of the great thinkers of our time. It's worth reading. Eckhart. So where I am now, and with these 5 books that I'd recommend, my meditation level is pretty good, and I suppose I meditate for between 35 minutes and 55 minutes a day. And I still do an insight meditation, which I've adopted in my own style. So that is completely where I'm up to now in terms of my learning and my commitment to mindfulness, the time I put into it and the practice that I do. But if you've got any questions at all about, if you don't want to do some kind of 8-week program, what meditations you should be starting on, or even if you're at some kind of more advanced level, some intermediate level, what meditations would be good for you to move on to, or what reading you should be doing, Any questions you've got at all, please ask below. And if you've got any videos you want to see as well, write down below, and make sure you subscribe, and I'll try and incorporate them into the lineup of videos that are going to come out. But thank you for watching. You take care, and I'll see you soon. Be mindful, be happy. Bye-bye. Could you help me? Subscribe to my channel. There's no one out here. Been out here for hours, doesn't seem to be anyone. If you could do that, it'd be crazy cool. Help me spread this message of mindful ability that we can have. And together, we can start to implement some kind of change in people's lives. Peace.